All right, Mary, should launch in and follow your slides. Let's go ahead. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alex Campbell. If this is the first session or first time meeting me, I'm External Affairs, manage External Affairs for the Disaster Recovery and Resilience team. I'm just going to cover the first few slides today and then hand it over to Mary Caroling. So if you go ahead to the agenda. The main reason I'm talking is to talk a little bit about the timelines, and then we're going to spend the bulk of our time going a little bit deeper into the first ReOregon housing program, HARP, and then we'll close with a little bit of more future forecasting. So Mary, if you go ahead and go to the timelines slide. So what I was told today is unfortunately the same thing that I've been told for a couple weeks, and that is that we are a couple weeks out from sharing model contracts with you all. I will continue to push on that. But we certainly know that you all cannot start the work in earnest until you have funding commitments from us. So we will continue pushing that forward. This is our sort of second and a half, maybe, workshop. We're going to continue offering these. The next couple may be a little bit more optional. The next week we're going to be focusing on social media strategies, but as we get closer to the contracts, we will be focusing more and more on the sort of the more legalistic contract requirements. It's a little backwards, you know, but we're doing it in this order because we have more clarity about the program. So we figured we should start with the things that we had more confidence about, and that gave us a little bit more time to continue to fine tune the later topics. Giving you all our best estimate, the program management vendor do not have a signed contract as of today. I hope the next time that we talk, we do, but as I'm sure you all have experienced with projects of this size, there are a lot of interdependencies, and so there are a lot of different places that can cause us to slow down. I'm still hopeful that we have the portal open prior to the end of July, and that's the latest that we're at on that. Why don't I stop there and see if there are questions about this slide or the next. So I'll finish talking this slide and then pause. Phase one will open for applications simultaneously to the eligibility questionnaire. As a reminder, we're going to be asking everybody that is willing to complete that short eligibility questionnaire that is both capturing information for future HARP phases and also serving as sort of a gate into the phase one application. And then sometime, you know, as in the future, we will have future phases of HARP expanding the eligibility, and we will also be opening the new homeownership program, HOP, but we do not have firm timelines on those. I want to stop there and see if there are questions about that. And I think I'll tap dance and see if those appear, but I think Mary, the next slide, I would turn it over to you.
Sure.
So whenever you're ready, go for it.
Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Mary Heberling Creighton. I'm the External Affairs Manager, and I will be giving you all of the deep dive into HARP. And some of this may be information that you've already heard or already know, but I encourage everyone, if you have questions, you can stop at any time and raise your hand, or you can use the chat function. We have Abran who's moderating the chat, and he can answer things there as well too. But I do already see one person has a hand raised. Devin, go for it.
This is probably a pretty easy one. Is there a way to move the picture or our faces so we can see the whole screen or see your presentation?
I think that might be on your end, but I'm not sure. What are you saying?
Well, I only can see half of it, and then I see our faces. Maybe somebody can put in the chat something I can do so I can see the whole thing, but I won't interrupt anymore.
That's okay. No, it's a good question. Okay. Yes, so again, feel free to interrupt me during any of this point. I'll also stop and see if there's questions too that are waiting to be answered in the chat or anything that comes up. So I just also wanted to reiterate what Alex had mentioned just a little bit ago about the eligibility questionnaire. So this will be coming out simultaneously with the HARP application. It'll kind of be like a pre-application, essentially, short pre-application questionnaire. And we want you all to encourage folks who even don't think that they may qualify for phase 1 of HARP to take this questionnaire, because it will influence future phases of all of our ReOregon housing programs. So not just HARP, but HARP, HOP, all of that. So we just really want to keep emphasizing to you all to make sure that people take this eligibility questionnaire, and it'll be coming out at the same time as the HARP application. So. Okay, purpose and overview of HARP. So again, some of this might be things you already know, but for those that don't, HARP's purpose is to provide funding for eligible homeowners who experience damage from their primary residencies from the 2020 Labor Day wildfire. So that includes homeowners who still have remaining recovery needs. And we'll go over what remaining recovery needs means, but that's the purpose of HARP here. So an overview, HARP will be funding eligible rehabilitation, reconstruction, or replacement costs. Those costs could include things to help them get up to federal, state, local construction standards, comply with green building, as well as making sure that homes are accessible to those that with disabilities or seniors who need accessibility accommodations for their homes as well. There are some eligibility requirements for HARP. We'll go over those as well. First, starting with residency criteria. So these must be, for people to be eligible for HARP, they need to be an owner-occupant of an eligible damaged property at the time of the disaster. And then it also had to have been their primary residence at the time of disaster. So it's not something for people that if they lost like a second home or anything like that, it had to have been their primary residency at the time of disaster to be eligible. We also understand that there could be some changes that have happened from the time of the disaster to now that could affect those that are eligible with how we define household. So changes in family structures, such as divorce, young adults moving out, somebody that has died, and then a new person has inherited the home that was destroyed during the fire. And then we also understand that there are multi-family, multi-generational households as well. So those are some of the things that we could see as being potential sticking points for people on if they think that they would meet the criteria of a household, or if they might have some questions about it. We were also curious about you all, if you had any sort of things that you could see being possible kind of sticking points, or things that could be something that we should consider in terms of regarding what is a household and those kinds of changes that could have happened in the past 2.5, 3 years. Okay. You can always put it in the chat too. Or if you have.
Yeah. But sorry to interrupt, Mary. Yeah, so
No.
I gave a similar presentation to the fire serving agencies in Jackson County a couple of weeks ago, and folks were asking questions about a household, a home where there were two really unrelated families living in a home together. And in that case, the family that owned the home would be eligible for HARP, and the family that was living with them, whether they're paying rent or not, we would encourage them to apply for HARP. That they were essentially living in somebody else's home. They were essentially a renter, even if there was no rent at no cost. So they could go back and document with that other household that they were living with them at the time of the disaster, and then they'd be eligible for HARP. But we know that there are a lot of different situations that we're going to have to try to anticipate the best we can for frequently asked questions. And so if you're aware of situations and that sort of, we wouldn't have necessarily already anticipated. We want to be sure to capture as many as we can so we can, give clear direction to you all as you're starting to do the outreach. So that was our goal here. Thanks.
And I'll also forgot to mention this at the beginning too, we'll be sending out these slides to you all as well. So there's going to be kind of a lot of information. Some of the slides I will gloss over the information. I won't go into too much detail about it, but know that we will be sending these slides out to you. So you'll have it as well. Okay. So other eligibility requirements, this will be in particular for phase 1 of HARP income criteria. We do have income limits for those that are considered low and moderate income households. They will be eligible as long as they have not completed reconstruction or replacement. And having completed means that it's a safe, healthy, secure home that they own. So we understand that sometimes people could still be in the middle of rebuilding their home. They could be eligible. It's mostly for folks that have already completed a rebuild that are not going to be eligible in this first phase. And low and moderate income is households that usually are not meeting 80% of the area median income. And those are numbers that we get from HUD themselves of what that 80% is. And you'll see in the next slide what those are. And we did just recently get new updates to the income numbers. And so the next slide will have the latest and greatest numbers that we just got. And then we also do have a few exceptions regarding the income criteria. So those who have severe debt burden or households with a member who's experiencing disability could be eligible, but they can't be more than what is 100% of area median income. And so if you have severe debt that's going to be that is related to recovery or medical costs from the disaster, and then a person who's experienced disability, they would qualify if they require ongoing care or physical accommodations for that. So that is just a little bit of an exception there for the income criteria. I'll stop here. Are there any questions so far?
I'm gonna hit send on an email I'm gonna reply all to the calendar invite and send you all the current flyers with the LMI numbers. I promised that to you all a couple times. I'm gonna hit send on that right now.
Yeah, it did also go out yesterday for our listserv too. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'll ask it. Sorry, I was in the office with somebody else that had the thing on, so it was killing me. Is severely debt burden defined?
Yes,
Yes.
30% or more of income dedicated to debt payments, interest and principal.
Okay, and then I do see a question about HARP funding support not being tiered. Is it 80% AMI or nothing? So it's 80% or below.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject. Alex, can you re-say what you said? I didn't quite catch it.
Yes, so the debt burden standard is that the interest and or principal payments amount to 30% or more of the gross household income.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think the last question was more about the benefit. So yes, for phase one, it's an all or nothing. You're either eligible or you're not. For future phases, and this is part of the reason that we're really hoping to get a lot of information out of the eligibility questionnaire, so I think it's certainly possible that we may open a future phase to folks with higher income, but there may be a lower, a more limited benefit at that higher income level.
Any further questions on that? Not seeing anything in the chat for now. Okay, we will continue on. Okay, and again, this is just the latest and greatest numbers for the income limits at 80% AMI for all of the counties. So in terms of what a person would be eligible for in terms of what they could get. For replacing their primary residency, again, this is for only owner residents, they could get a complete rebuild. So that would include a stick-built home, complete rebuild. It could be a new manufactured or modular home. And of course, whenever we're going to be replacing, rebuilding manufactured homes, we would make sure that it meets energy efficiency and resiliency modifications as well. As part of that. And then there are a couple of requirements about the size and kind of what else you would need to meet the eligibility for a primary residence being rebuilt or replaced. So usually we want a like-for-like replacement of the home that was destroyed. We could have an exception where maybe the family or multiple families together were living in a house that didn't meet their needs and they need something a little bit bigger. That could be a potential exception, but typically we're going to want to replace same size that was lost. And then also it will be eligible for repairs to address any sort of health and safety issues. So even if they've bought a new home, but it's not ready, it's not habitable yet for them, those construction costs to make it healthy and habitable could be used and be eligible for this program. And then we also are going to be doing a pilot program around those who are eligible could get an accessory dwelling unit on their property. Of course, they would have to meet local zoning and land use standards if that would be allowed where they are. But that is something that we are looking at as a possibility for those who are eligible as well. And I know I saw a hand up and I think the chat's going on as well. So any questions on this?
Yes, this is Devin. I have a question. It goes back on the replacement cost for a stick-built home.
Mhm.
We've had this conversation a couple times about the square footage, and in each area, you know, the cost to rebuild is a little bit different per square footage. Are we going to get a breakdown, for example, the McKenzie Valley, what we could reimburse at a square footage cost, because it's pretty expensive on the McKenzie Valley route to rebuild?
Yeah, that's a great question, Devin. I mean, I think we have definitely concluded that we can accommodate that. I don't think we have settled on whether it's something that we would proactively just put forward or something that somebody would have to request. I think that's an area that would be really excellent to have you all, because if we put it on, if we put it on the applicant, that you all could, you know, collect the documentation and sort of share that with everybody, so they wouldn't have to collect that themselves. But we haven't settled exactly on what that process would be yet.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And I'll answer the MH question in the chat as well. Functionally, if somebody is asking us to, if somebody hasn't yet purchased a manufactured home, the benefit in the vast majority of cases is going to be sufficient for them to purchase a new home. If somebody's coming to us and saying that they've already, you know, put money down on an older home, and they're asking us to help them complete the purchase of that older home, if that home is so old that it, you know, really is extremely difficult to meet energy standards, we likely would not purchase that home. It shouldn't make them ineligible for the program, right? We would say, we would work with them, hopefully work with the people that they're purchasing from. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see if we run into this. I don't think there are a lot of used purchases that would only be partway done, and we're not talking about a reimbursement program here. So I'm not sure how much we've run into that question, but the bottom line answer is functionally, yeah, there are homes that we're not going to, that we would not consider, you know, acceptable for this program. That I don't think that should exclude somebody's eligibility. Devin, go for it.
Well, my next question is, so if somebody purchased an older manufactured home that maybe doesn't meet the energy efficiencies, that was probably over 20 years old, and they were able to move into it, are they eligible to purchase a new home and get rid of this older home that might not meet code?
So yeah, potentially. So if somebody purchased a home, whether it's a manufactured home or a stick-built home, and the standard is going to be whether it meets HQS standards. So Devin, I don't know if you're familiar with that. Most of the CAAs are familiar with that standard. It's a HUD standard, and there's a standard rubric. So if homes don't meet the HQS standard, that's sort of the trigger at which that we could come in and look at repairing or doing improvements to their home. If it's a really old manufactured home, we do a cost reasonableness analysis, and what may well conclude that it's more cost reasonable for us to purchase or help assist them in purchasing a new home than it is to retrofit or bring that older MH up to HQS standard.
You said NHQS?
HQS. I'll drop a link in the chat.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and then there's another question, Alex, that said they think that they heard that HARP could be used for after a home purchase has begun. And I think it depends, if there are health and safety issues with the home that has been purchased or is in the process of being purchased, funds could be used to make it habitable and healthy. But I
Yeah,
don't
so
think it'll be used just for outright purchase. Is that right, Alex?
well, so the most common situation, and I think what Cass, let me know if this answers your question. So I think the most common situation that we're aware of is somebody has maybe put 50% down on a manufactured home, right? And yes, they can come in and apply, and we can help them complete that purchase. So we wouldn't consider that reimbursement, right? Because they haven't paid that remaining 50% yet. We can help them complete the purchase.
Yes, thank you. That is what I was asking. And it was about a new manufactured home. So great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this before I move on? Okay. Okay, so again, eligible structure types for HARP program is going to be a single unit stick built and modular homes or mobile manufactured or prefabricated homes. Again, we kind of just talked about that as well. And then there's a list of ineligible structure types here. Most important to note is properties that are located in a floodway. If they are RV camper owners, they could apply for assistance under HARP in a future HARP program. So that's something to note. And then also unpermitted housing units on the land is going to be something that's ineligible too. So those are some of the main things, but there's a whole list here as well. Okay. And then a couple of limitations. So I'll start off with a stop work environmental review. So since these are funds that are coming from HUD, they're federal funds, it will require a federal environmental review, which is different than if they've gone through any sort of environmental review locally from the county or the city that they're in. This is something totally different. And that will require them to stop work if they are in the process of rebuilding. They will have to stop work before they can kind of re-go again, if that's the right term, to have this environmental review done as well. So that's something that people should be aware of and know ahead of time that they will have to, for a limited amount of time, stop work on their rebuild if they are doing that. And then obviously duplication of benefits will be something that will need to be addressed as well. And we'll be looking at those duplication of benefits in their application review. So that's something for people to be aware of as well. And then Alex, did you want to talk a little bit about the subsidized loan portion? Because I think you have it better than I do.
Yeah, sure. And before I do that, I'll just also say about the stop work, just to be super clear, right? Completing the eligibility questionnaire would not result in a stop work. And that's part of the reason that we're doing those two different things. We wouldn't want anybody to have to stop work until they have to. But once somebody hits apply on any federal application, they do have to stop work. So it's once they apply for HARP phase 1 that they would have to stop work. So in terms of the duplication of benefits, this is something that it's an additional tool. And I think the best way to talk about it is to talk about it in an example. So we know that there are some survivors who, for instance, took an insurance payment and paid off the mortgage. Typically, if we didn't have this exception, we would say, well, we can help you, but you've got to essentially go get a construction loan, and sort of take new debt out, right? Because they have the benefit, they've already been repaid by their insurance company for that lost home. So we couldn't really help them. They'd be stuck with trying to finance a new construction. We can, under this opportunity, and to be completely transparent, this potentially goes away in October of this year. There's an allowance. We're optimistic and hopeful that it gets extended in some ways, either statutorily or by HUD. But this is a strategy that we have included in our policies to allow us, in their cases where there is a DOB issue, but somebody can show that all of their federal benefits have been spent on a recovery issue, we could offer them a subsidized loan. That subsidization can include some forgiveness over time. So in the case that I'm talking about with somebody who, say, maybe paid off their mortgage, we very likely wouldn't allow them, it's the wrong word. We would structure that subsidized loan to allow them to really recover to where they were, and help them rebuild, have their home again with a similar amount of debt that they had prior to the fire. I kind of butchered that, and that's good information for me that we need to tighten up our talking points on this. The main reason that we're flagging it for you all is because it's a change. It's new for us. We weren't aware of having this opportunity, and it is, I think, a little bit different than the way that we'd be thinking about it previously. So we're excited that we've got this tool, but it's, I think the bottom line for you all to know is, for clients that you're working with who you do know have a serious duplication of benefit issue already, that they should be sure that they're applying early, because we're going to prioritize processing them so we can make sure that we get them through while we have this additional tool available to us. Denise, hopefully your question will get me to speak more clearly.
Well, I don't know about that, Alex, but it's a two-part. You did a pretty good job, but I understand what you're talking about too. So it makes sense to me. My question does kind of go along with what you're talking about with forgivable subsidized loan. We're working with those. We've seen them before. Will there be limits to the amount that can be issued? This is a two-part question on the forgivable subsidized loan.
I think we would, well, I'm confident that we would use the same sort of award. Well, that's a good question.
Okay.
I'm going to write that down. I was going to answer it, but I realized I'm not sure about my answer. Chelsea Caddo is going to join us at 4 o'clock, our
Okay.
policy lead.
Okay.
So I'll turn to you and ask you to repeat that.
And I asked that for a reason, because I can see where there wouldn't be if we're just filling the gap between what is a DOB that they cannot come up with versus the max benefit amount that they would receive anyway, and that's fine.
Right.
But I'm wondering if the funding is set to potentially go away in October, and also historically I've known to have limitations on funding, it runs out, right? So perhaps there's a set limit so that it's available for all those who need it. That's really why I'm asking. And also so that a participant might have to come up with something, right? Second part, it has to do with the environmental review, which I noticed somebody popped up in a chat, something similar. And this is very new, and I'm curious as to what does that look like? I mean, it sounds like what I heard you say is once the application goes through for HARP, Like once the eligibility questionnaire is done, they're triggered into the application process because it looks like they're going to be phase 1 eligible. So they get started on the application and then boom, stop work happens. Can you elaborate a little bit on the logistics around that? How long does that last? What's the timeline for that? How many inspectors do we have to go and do these environmental reviews? I mean, what does it look like?
Yeah. So, so the stop work would happen. It starts at the moment that they hit send on the application. So they, as part of the application, they will certify. Essentially, there'll be an electronic signature. There'll be a lot of electronic signatures, but one of them will be acknowledging that they have to stop work once they click apply. As far as how long it will take, it will vary. It can vary quite a bit depending upon what complications there may be at the specific site that they're working. It is, you know, at the low end, it could be as little as a few weeks. At the high end, if say we're talking about a new stick-built home, right, that was being built perhaps on a lot that has wetlands and or floodplain in it, and they're building in a new footprint that was previously built in, it's possible that we could be talking about having to do a wetland delineation. I mean, so that there isn't an easy answer, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's going to depend a lot on the characteristics of the site that they're.
And
they're
it
looking
does
at.
sound a lot more attributed to a new build, stick built, that kind of thing. Is this an environmental review will be done for all types of housing, manufactured housing included, or just for new builds and new construction?
Some level of environmental review is required for all projects, but the environmental review of purchasing a manufactured home that's going to go on a previously paved pad would be, you know, at the quick one.
Thank you.
What ends in, I'll answer the question in the chat. So what potentially goes away in October is our ability to use this forgivable subsidized loan tool to deal with duplication of benefits. So it's really, if you have a good understanding of duplication of benefits, it's a pretty substantial workaround for difficult duplication of benefit issues. As I said, we're hopeful that it doesn't go away, but as the rules are currently written, that's the thing that would change in October, or could change in October.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, let's do it. Okay, so as we've all been talking about, the application will be online. So it'll be an online portal that is where the applicants will be submitting all of their materials, all of their documents, filling out forms, all of that sort of thing. But we have you all to help on the local side with those that will need extra assistance to do that. So either they just aren't comfortable doing it themselves online, they may not have internet access, they just need some one-on-one help to get access to documents and that sort of thing. That's where you'll all come in, but it will be all on an online portal where they will be submitting everything. So we just wanted to make that clear. And of course, people can do it themselves if they really wanted to. But we wanted to make sure that you all could be there to help those that need a little extra assistance. And I also see Cass has your hand raised. Go for it.
You said it'll all be online portal, and I did hear something about paper applications being allowed. If we have folks fill out a paper application, will we then need to put that in? We need to submit that electronically for them? Okay.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so, and it'll be, Alex, I think this is correct, is we're leaving it open to you all if you're willing to do that for people, have them fill out a paper application and then put it in online. But yes, everything does need to be submitted and online.
Yeah, and I think you may conclude that it's more efficient to actually sit down with somebody and do it online with them sitting next to you than it is to accept a paper application and try to decipher what they're writing and do later data entry.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then, as we mentioned before, kind of just a quick of what the application process would look like. Again, they'll go through that self-certified eligibility questionnaire. If they meet the minimum requirements for eligibility, they'll move on to be able to apply for the phase 1 of HARP. And then they'll have to complete all the application forms, submit all the supporting documents. And then after that, it will determine kind of what the award amount will be, those determinations there as well. So that's kind of just a very high level view of what that application process would look like. And then we'll pause here. Pause maybe for a little break. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Okay. And maybe we'll do like a 10-minute, 7-minute break. Is that what you were thinking, Alex? Okay. So do a quick break. And then if you all have questions, you can also ask them during this break time as well.
Is it 7 or 10? Want to be back at the right time?
Let's do reconvene at 3:52. And our thought, as much as anything, we want to give you all some more space to ask questions. So Mary's going to open up break rooms for folks who may be more comfortable asking questions in smaller groups, because, I mean, I know, well, I'm fairly free with asking stupid questions because I'm used to being stupid. But anyway, we want to make space for you all to ask questions, but also you don't feel obligated to participate in one of these Q&A things. Feel free to take a break. That's hopefully clear.
Yeah. Do breakout rooms here. Let's do what, 5? Sure. Okay. And we'll meet back at 3:52.
Eligibility question. And so it serves two purposes. We could, in fact, it's functionally the first couple screens, literally, of the HARP application. So somebody would log in, everybody's going to log in, and they'll start filling out the eligibility questionnaire. If they appear to be eligible for HARP phase 1, it'll be automated. Nobody will have to review it. If they click the right buttons that make it appear that they're eligible for HARP phase 1, it'll literally take them to the next screen and say, okay, let's start your HARP phase 1 application. And we're planning to open them both at the same time, in large part because of that. It is essentially the first step of the HARP Phase 1 application. And the reason that we're asking as many people as possible to complete it is that data gathering need for us, and that's really oriented towards future phases.
Thank you, Alex.
Right on.
Looks like we did have a question from one of the breakout rooms. Will there be any data sharing around previous survey responses, VisionLink or VisionLink?
Right. So I hope so. The exact mechanism, we're talking with DHS about that. My personal thought is the easiest way to handle that would be for us to just build in the release of information, of VisionLink information, to basically the start of the HARP application, right? So you as a intake support provider would have that release of information and know that you could go into VisionLink and get additional information for them. The reality is that income has to be current income. So there's not that much information, so to speak, that's in VisionLink that's going to be super helpful. I think there are documents that may have been uploaded to VisionLink that the survivor may not still have access to that would be really important or could be really helpful for you all to have access to their specific VisionLink file. So anyway, the short answer is yes. And the only thing that I'm not sure about is whether we're going to have a separate ROI mechanism that DHS hosts, or whether we're going to just be able to integrate that with our application.
And we are taking notes of all the questions in the chat, questions that come up in person and in the breakout room. So if for some reason you missed something, so I think like some people maybe have froze and weren't able to be in the breakout rooms, we'll send all of that out as well, along with the PowerPoint slides. So, yep. Okay, and then there is an outstanding question, Alex, about environmental review and inspectors, how many there may need be for that. Kind of just a little more clarity on the environmental review.
Yeah. So first of all, in the simpler cases, it may well be possible to complete environmental review literally without going to the site. But so that's one piece of context. I'm not sure exactly how many inspectors we will have available to us. That is going to be a function performed primarily by the program management vendor. So I don't know the exact number of members of the team, but that's part of the reason that we're relying on the program management vendor, is that they'll be able to surge a lot more than we would doing direct hires. And I see a question. Did I get the all of that environmental review question? The Karen's question about DCMs. So with the caveat that I am not, well, I'm going to be careful to make sure that I'm not speaking on DHS's behalf, and I don't want to contradict anything that DHS is saying, because DHS has those contracts. DHS is managing that entire thing. What I can tell you is that I am working on, met yesterday with DHS about an interagency agreement under which we would provide them funding to continue disaster case management support. So with apologies, I don't want to go, I think the details and the mechanics and the timing of that are appropriately answered by DHS, but that we believe that we do have a solution collectively with them, have a solution for the funding issue.
Let me share my screen again, get back in there. Okay. All right, so now we're going to get into kind of the more detailed things. A lot of these slides, I'm going to be glossing over what the information or the specific documents are. But again, we will be sending out the PowerPoint slides to you all so you can have this for to review a little bit further. But in terms of what people can expect of the forms and documents that they'll need to provide as part of their application, this is kind of the list. Not everything is going to be appropriate for everyone. Some people may need a power of attorney, some people may not. But this is kind of like a big list of what to expect. And I'll go into more details of specifics in the next few slides. So, okay. So, thing to note, all applicants will have to provide proof of identity, verification of income, and disaster assistance received and uses. And I'll go into a little bit of what those documents are. So proof of identity, again, I'm not going to go over all of this, but big thing to note is citizenship or legal residency is not required to be eligible for this program. So we want to make sure that's very clear for folks who are looking to get assistance. But these are the things that you would need to show proof of identity. Household income information, Alex mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it's current income, not income at the time of the disaster. So that's also something really important to note as well. And these are some of the documents that you would use to prove your income. And then disaster assistance received and uses, these are, where applicable, these are the documents that you could use to show that. In terms of if you're a person that has received assistance from FEMA, some of these documents may not be needed, but items required unless an applicant has received repair or replacement assistance from FEMA, you're going to need to show proof of occupancy and primary residency, as well as property damage verification. Again, here are the documents that you could use to show how you meet occupancy, primary residency, damage verification, that sort of thing. And then items required of applicants, depending on circumstances. So this is going to be in every case. Mortgage status, work completed, needed, or underway, power of attorney, alternate contact, and tenant contact information. Those last three will be providing forms for that as well as part of the application. And then again, here's what you could use to show mortgage status. And then if you've already started rehab or reconstruction, these are the things that you may need depending on what you have rehabbed or started recently or within the last few years. And then items that may be required if we at OHCS cannot verify with public records, good standing on property taxes, and then proof of ownership. And then this is the documents that you could potentially need to show proof of ownership of the damaged property. And
so Mary, if I could just clarify, so what in this area, right, we'll just look at the public records.
Yep.
And so folks won't have to initially provide something at application. So this is more a heads up that we're going to look at the public records and see if we can, you know, document, see this is clear. But if it's not clear, there are other, you know, there are obviously documents that we would look at and consider and understand if they could demonstrate why or where the public record is incomplete. And just to, in addition to sharing this PowerPoint with you all, we are working on a standalone document that's all just dedicated to the getting ready to apply pieces. What is the information that the applicants would want to have ready when they move into the HARP application.
Yep. And then Alex, there's a question in the chat asking if someone's behind on property tax, does that exclude them from this program?
At the end of the day, yes, it could. It wouldn't prevent them from moving forward with their application. We would allow them to sort of work the process, but at the end of the day, prior to receiving an award, they would need to either get current or get on an approved payment plan to in order to be eligible for the program. Right? We don't want to fund a house that's going to get taken away from them by the state. Is there assistance to help pay for back taxes? I'm pretty confident the answer is no. I'm hesitant to say that clearly, but I am reasonably confident that there's not any assistance that this program could apply to covering those back taxes. Thanks, Denise. It sounds like half may be able to help with that.
Right. So we've had a lot of talking with you all. We've had a lot of questions about reimbursement options as part of HARP. This is something that is not eligible for phase 1 of HARP. So these would be people that have rebuilt, but they may have been somebody that used up all of their savings to do that. And so now they're struggling because of that. So technically they are rebuilt, but they're not economically rebuilt in that sense, sort of. So again, they're not eligible for phase 1, but we are hopeful that they could be eligible for future phases of reimbursement. Again, we're really emphasizing people take that eligibility questionnaire so then we can assess what type of reimbursement needs we're seeing out there for survivors, for people that are still recovering, and just make sure that they're saving all of their records and receipts from the rebuild so that we can assist them quicker if this does become something that's eligible for future phases. So we just wanted to make sure that was super clear with you all, and that, you know, this is kind of where we are right now, but we're hopeful that it could be in future phases. So that's here. And then that's kind of all of the stuff we have for the deep dive of HARP. I do know that Chelsea, with our policy team, has joined us. So if we have any really particular questions that we couldn't answer, Chelsea may be the person to answer them for us. I don't know if we have any off the top of our head.
Yeah.
I don't know, Alex, if you had any that came up.
Yeah, I think Denise's question about subsidized loan and whether there's, so Chelsea, I think that the question was, is there there a particular limit on the amount that of a subsidized loan if we're using a subsidized loan to address the duplication of benefit?
No, the only limit would be up to the, award amount, the total award amount. So if for some reason, which I don't think would be likely, but potentially if, nope, sorry, I'm trying to remember because we were working on whether or not, I think we determined that it could go up to the total award amount. So if they needed the whole thing in a subsidized loan, we could do that. At one point we were trying to determine if we do cap that, but I think I'll double check on that, but I think we determined that we would allow it to go up because we would still have that DOB issue and challenge if we didn't allow it to cover more or cover the full need.
Denise, was that enough? I think you had a related question, but I think that.
Yeah, no, hi, Chelsea. Yeah,
Hi.
no, that was exactly my thought process. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I'll review it because we're building that out, that piece of the HARP policy. We're building that out separately because it's kind of a new addition. So I'll review it and just let you know for sure. But I think that's what we came up with.
I'm loving that solution. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to include that in our FAQ. So we're sort of projecting for you all documents that you're going to be seeing from us. So the ones that we are furthest along are that get ready to apply and an FAQ, and we'll make sure that that subsidized loan question's in our FAQ when we get that out to you. And we are also working on sort of a whole packet, as we talked a little bit about, I think 2 weeks ago, that would include the email templates, the talking points, sort of a range of communication tools that you may want to build from and use. Hey, Devin, I think go for it.
Yes, is there an amount of time somebody needs to live in their residence after you do the rebuild before they can sell?
So right now, if it's through the HARP program, so the HOP program where you're, renter to homeowner, that's a HUD requirement. Right now, we do not have that requirement if all of the award is a grant. We've discussed whether or not, we do like a year or something like that, but I believe right now we've determined that we're not going to do that. However, for the subsidized loan component, it will be, I don't know if you guys talked about the specifics. I think it's going to be based on the amount of the loan. And so the max would be 4 years that it's forgivable over. And so there will be some occupancy requirements just to make sure that, so there will be some issue, like you could potentially default if you leave and you're renting it out to someone, so it's no longer your primary residence. So there'd be a couple of things that could trigger default. So that's kind of it is an occupancy requirement specific to that subsidized loan. And if you ended up selling before your loan was completely forgiven, you would just be expected out of the proceeds to pay off that loan. And then there'll be an opportunity if you're in default. And again, like the default triggers are pretty basic. It's if it fails to, continue to be your primary residence. And the assumption there is you're, using it as a rental property, then there'll be an opportunity to cure. And during that opportunity to cure period, HUD requires us to basically put in an amortization calendar and start, we can start charging interest on that, but we do not want to be in a situation where we've given someone a subsidized loan and, we amortize it over 20 years to make the monthly payments affordable. And then they just keep the property as a rental property and we carry a loan for 20 years. So we want to dissuade that. We want to make it, if they do default, that they can afford it. So it's not this extravagant cost to someone, but we also want to be careful around, displacing a tenant who's inadvertently in there. But we don't want to be in the business of carrying, these long-term loans with interest rates and repayment plans and stuff. So short answer is if you're doing a grant, there is not with HARP.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea.
Mhm. I think there was
Thanks,
a
Jerry.
question in chat.
I learned.
Oh,
Yeah, I think there's a question in the chat asking if homes that were damaged by wind are also eligible.
Yes, and the answer is yes. So the 2020 Labor Day storms, the federal disaster was Labor Day fires and wind event. So if there was wind damage caused by that several day wind event in the counties that we're talking about, then damage from those disasters would be eligible for repair under HARP.
so we just have to use the specific definition in the Federal Register that kind of identifies this disaster. That's what it.
Any other questions while we have Chelsea here? It's
And
okay if
I'll
you don't
just
have
say
them. Yep.
I'll just say one more thing about the windstorm. My belief is that the only homes with serious damage from the winds alone that I've heard of were in Lincoln County. I think there were some downed trees that damaged structures that were just from the winds, but that's the only ones that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, so we'll just finish off here quickly. Just know that we have upcoming workshops that Alex mentioned at the very beginning. Next Thursday will kind of be like a social media 101, but even if you know social media, it's going to be helpful because we have some folks that have done disaster recovery social media campaigns, essentially, who's going to help us kind of do a little presentation and then a Q&A afterwards just for them for any sort of Q&A that you want. So that's next Thursday. I believe we're thinking about 2:30, but we will confirm for you all and let you know. And again, it will be on Zoom. So if you see any sort of like Teams message or Teams link to anything, it's not going to be on Teams. It'll be on Zoom. But if you accidentally go to Teams, we'll just let you know. So not a problem. And then, yeah, if you have any other topics, so the social media one did come up because we were hearing from people that they wanted some support on social media strategizing to get the word out for people. So if there are other topics of interest that you want us to help you all with and have a workshop about, please let us know. Our contact info is here, but I think you know most of us already. So yeah, I will stop sharing. And if we have any other questions, happy to take them too. But that's all I've got.
Maybe I could just add, I wasn't here for the subsidized loan discussion, but it's, I think I know why some of the questions are being asked because of, we've had this challenge with WIRA. And just, there's going to be a nuance in using subsidized loans to offset duplication of benefits where, and you might have mentioned this, but, there'll be situations where people use their, insurance or FEMA awards or other benefits for different purposes, but still related to recovery, right? So to help living expense, rent and things like that. And so there will be a fine line between someone who used their funding to go out and, I'm trying to think, take a trip to Disneyland or something. Not that we're saying that people are doing that, but it has to be a justification that, it wasn't used for the specific purpose it was given for a specific purpose and it wasn't used for that specific purpose, but it's still something that would typically be allowable and helping them move towards their recovery. So just wanted to, so there will still be some situations where even the subsidized loan is going to be a challenge if someone used it for, a purpose that had nothing to do with recovery. So just wanted to give a heads up about that. And we're looking at, there will be essentially 3 options. Folks can also looking at reducing the scope of their rebuild, if that will help offset the DOB. In some cases, folks may be able to, bring that amount to the table, which I think would probably be fairly rare, but maybe if they had purchased something and they can sell it, they could bring that and then the subsidized loan as the 3rd option.
Great. Thanks, Chelsea. Any other final questions before we head out? No? Great. Well, like I said, we will send out the PowerPoint slides, any sort of questions that came up in the chat and also in person, that's what we call it. We will provide the answers to those questions as well, just so for folks that couldn't make it today, but also if you just want reference to any of the answers that we gave today. And then also we'll send out a link to the recording of this as well. So feel free to share this with folks that couldn't make it. But we will do that for sure by the end of next week, but hopefully earlier than that. But yeah, so anyway, thanks for coming and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.